The arrangement. Captain Eliza Reed stood before the viewscreen, watching the alien vessel approach Haven Colony. The massive ship eclipsed their small settlement's central dome, casting long shadows across the terraformed valley. 6 months ago, the appearance of a Vexari warship would have sent the colony into panic. Now, it represented their only hope for survival. "They're early," said Commander Jackson, her second in command. His weathered face showed the strain of the past year: food shortages, failing systems, and the atmospheric degradation that threatened to make Haven uninhabitable within months. "The Vexari are nothing if not punctual," Eliza replied, smoothing down her formal uniform. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. 20,000 colonists depended on her decision today. The communication panel chimed. "Captain Reed, the Vexari delegation requests permission to dock at the central hub." "Permission granted," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Prepare the reception committee." Jackson hesitated before speaking. "Are you sure about this, Captain? There must be another way." Eliza gave him a sharp look. "We've been over this. Our atmosphere processors are failing. The agricultural domes are operating at 30% capacity. Without Vexari bioengineering technology, Haven Colony dies within a year. And in exchange, they get you," Jackson said bitterly, "as a diplomatic bride. I get the honor of becoming the wife of Zarek, son of High Chancellor Vox." She corrected, the practiced words sounding hollow even to her ears. "The first human-Vexari union will cement our alliance and ensure the survival of this colony." The truth was more complex. The Vexari had encountered humanity only 3 years prior, and relations had been tense from the start. The aliens were technologically superior, but wary of humanity's reputation for rapid advancement and occasional aggression. When Haven's distress signal reached Vexari space, High Chancellor Vox had proposed a solution that would solve 2 problems: save the human colony while binding them closely to Vexari interests through an unbreakable personal alliance. Eliza had volunteered. As colony leader and former Earth military, the responsibility fell to her. She'd never been one for romantic notions anyway. Her career had always come first. This was just another mission, she told herself. But as she walked toward the docking bay, flanked by her security team and colony officials, doubt crept in. The Vexari were still largely a mystery to humans. Their towering life bodies with iridescent scaled skin and eyes that seemed to shift color with their emotions made them difficult to read. Their society was ancient, complex, and governed by traditions humans were only beginning to understand. And now she would be bound to one of them for life. The massive doors of the docking bay slid open, revealing the Vexari delegation. At their center stood a figure that could only be Zarek. Even among his kind, he cut an imposing figure, nearly 7 feet tall with midnight blue scales that caught the light like precious stones. Unlike the other Vexari in their ceremonial armor, he wore what appeared to be civilian clothing, though still formal and elaborately detailed. His eyes locked with hers, deep amber with vertical pupils that widened slightly upon seeing her. Eliza felt a chill run down her spine. What was he thinking behind that alien gaze? Captain Reed, the translator at his side, spoke as Zarek's mouth moved, forming sounds no human throat could make. "I bring greetings from High Chancellor Vox and the Vexari Conclave." "Welcome to Haven Colony," she replied formally. "We're honored by your presence." Zarek stepped forward, towering over her. The translator kept pace. "The honor is mine, Captain. Your reputation precedes you. The defender of the Proxima outpost, the negotiator of the Europa Accords. My father chose well for this alliance." Something in his tone made her pause. Was that reluctance she detected? Interesting. Perhaps she wasn't the only one entered into this arrangement without enthusiasm. "You've studied my history," she observed. "I believed it wise to know the person to whom I will be bound," he replied. His head tilted in what she recognized as the Vexari equivalent of a smile. "Just as I assumed you have studied me." She had, indeed. Zarek was the younger son of the High Chancellor, a scientist rather than a warrior or politician, like his elder siblings. His specialties were xenobiology and cultural studies. He'd been instrumental in the initial contact between their species. The intelligence briefings had described him as progressive among his kind, whatever that meant in Vexeri terms. Perhaps we should continue this conversation privately, she suggested. The formal welcome reception isn't scheduled for another hour. Zarek nodded, following her to a small conference room adjacent to the docking bay. His guards made to accompany him, but he dismissed them with a gesture. Eliza did the same with her security team, though she noted Commander Jackson's disapproving frown. Once alone, Eliza's diplomatic facade slipped slightly. Let's be direct, Zarek. I know this marriage isn't what either of us would have chosen. The Vexeri's expression remained unreadable, but his scales shifted color subtly, darkening to a deeper blue. The translator spoke. You are correct, Captain Reed. This is a duty to my people, as I imagine it is to yours. Eliza, she corrected him. If we're to be married, you should use my given name. Eliza, he repeated, the translator giving the name a strange melodic quality. Among my people, arranged unions are common among the governing families. But I admit, binding myself to a human was unexpected. She allowed herself a small smile. Trust me, it wasn't on my 5-year plan either. Zarek's head tilted again, that Vexeri smile. You have a sense of humor. The reports mentioned your adaptability, but not this. The reports, she questioned. Just as your people have studied us, we have studied you, he replied. Particularly since your colony's difficulties began. We've monitored your rationing programs, your engineering efforts to salvage the atmosphere processors. Your leadership has been impressive. Not impressive enough to save my people without your help, she said quietly. Zarek paused, his scales rippling with subtle color changes. May I speak freely, Eliza? Please. There are those among my people who view humans as dangerous. A young species advancing too quickly, spreading too rapidly across the stars. They would have preferred to let your colony fail as a warning to others. The bluntness of his statement caught her off guard, but she appreciated his honesty. And what do you think? I think, he said slowly, that any species capable of surviving Earth's self-destructive phase and reaching the stars deserves respect. Your adaptability may seem chaotic to my people, but it's also your strength. Before she could respond, the door opened and one of her aides entered. Captain, the Colony Council has assembled for the preliminary treaty discussion. Eliza nodded. We'll be there shortly. When they were alone again, she turned back to Zarek. The survival technology your people promised, when will it arrive? The first shipment is aboard my vessel, he replied. Atmospheric stabilizers, advanced crop variants adapted for your colony's soil composition, and medical supplies. The engineering team will follow once our union is formalized. Then we should proceed with the council meeting, she said, moving toward the door. Zarek's long fingers touched her arm briefly, halting her. The contact sent a strange tingling sensation across her skin. One moment, Eliza. There is something you should know. She looked up at him questioningly. My father may have initiated this arrangement, but I agreed to it willingly, he said. Not just for political reasons. I've spent my career studying other species, trying to understand different forms of intelligence and society. This union offers an unprecedented opportunity to bridge our cultures. So I'm a research subject, she asked, unable to keep the edge from her voice. No, he replied quickly. A partner. Perhaps in time, even a friend. All I ask is that we approach this union with openness, despite its unconventional beginning. Eliza studied him, trying to read the alien face before her. Was this genuine or skilled diplomacy? Either way, the outcome remained the same. My priority is my colony's survival, she said finally. But yes, I can promise openness. The council meeting that followed was tense but productive. The Vexari delegation presented their plans for Haven's salvation, bioengineered atmospheric organisms that would restore the planet's deteriorating environment, agricultural technology that would triple food production. In exchange, the colony would provide the Vexari with exclusive mining rights to Haven's moon and serve as a cultural exchange outpost. And of course, there was the marriage. The ceremony will follow Vexari traditions, announced the elder who seemed to be their cultural attaché. As required, it will take place at the next rising of both your moons, 3 days hence. Eliza felt the eyes of the entire council upon her. She had volunteered for this, yet the reality of becoming legally, culturally bound to an alien she barely knew was beginning to sink in. After the meeting, she retreated to her quarters for a rare moment alone. The view screen showed the massive Vexari ship hanging above their colony, beautiful in its way, with organic-looking curves unlike the utilitarian human vessels. A message notification blinked on her personal terminal. Private communication from Zurich, text only. Eliza, forgive the intrusion. I sensed your discomfort during the council meeting. Among my people, pre-union apprehension is considered natural. If it helps, know that despite the political nature of our arrangement, you will be accorded all rights and respect of a Vexari spouse. No demands will be made that violate your dignity or autonomy. This I promise personally, regardless of the treaty terms. She read the message twice, surprised by his perceptiveness and consideration. Perhaps this arrangement, while never her choice, wouldn't be the cold political transaction she had feared. As she prepared to respond, alarms suddenly blared throughout the colony. The emergency communication system activated. Captain Reed to Central Command immediately. Security breach detected at the Southern Agricultural Dome. Grabbing her sidearm, Eliza raced toward the command center. As she entered, screens showed security footage of the agricultural dome, one of the few still producing food for the colony. Several figures in environmental suits were placing devices on the dome's support structures. Sabotage, Commander Jackson said grimly as she entered. We've identified them as members of the Earth First movement. Eliza's blood ran cold. The radical group opposed all alien contact, viewing it as contamination of humanity's destiny. They'd been a minor nuisance on Haven until now, distributing propaganda against alien influence. Evacuation status of the dome, she demanded. In progress, but there are still 30 workers inside. And Captain Jackson hesitated. The Vexari delegation sent a team to assist with the new crop implementation. They're in there too, including Zarek. Jackson nodded grimly. Eliza's mind raced. This wasn't just a threat to the colony now, but potentially to the entire human Vexari alliance. If members of the Vexari delegation were harmed or killed by human extremists. I'm going in, she decided. Prepare a security team. Captain, protocol says you should remain at command during. These are our people and our guests in danger, she cut him off. And this is still my colony. Minutes later, suited and armed, Eliza led a team of colony security toward the compromised dome. Through her helmet, she could see the agricultural space inside, a vast, carefully maintained ecosystem of crops and supporting plants, and now a battleground. Updates, she demanded through the comm. Explosives placed at structural points, the security chief reported. Appears designed to collapse the dome. Evacuation 60% complete. Extremists are holding several hostages near the central irrigation hub. And the Vexari team. At pause. No visual confirmation yet, Captain. As they breached the dome's emergency airlock, Eliza heard the distinct sound of energy weapons, not human technology. The Vexari were fighting back. Moving through the rows of crops, her team advanced toward the central hub. Through the plants, she caught glimpses of the confrontation ahead. 3 environmental-suited figures holding standard mining charges, facing off against 2 Vexari, one of whom was unmistakably Zarek. Between them stood several terrified agricultural workers. Surrender your weapons, one of the extremists was shouting. This colony belongs to humans, not alien conspirators. Eliza signaled her team to spread out, creating a perimeter. Through her comm, she addressed the colony security. Hold position. I'll attempt negotiation first. Stepping forward, she made herself visible. This is Captain Reed. Stand down immediately. All eyes turned to her. The lead extremist laughed harshly. Perfect timing, Captain. Come to welcome your new alien overlords personally. You're a traitor to humanity. I'm protecting humanity, she replied calmly. This colony dies without their help. Better to die human than live as pets to aliens. The extremist raised a detonator. We've rigged the entire dome. One press, and this symbol of capitulation is destroyed. Eliza kept her voice level. Along with 30 innocent colonists and yourself. That's not protecting humanity. It's murder. She could see Zarek watching her, his alien features tense but controlled. His eyes met hers briefly, a moment of silent communication. The Vexari aren't our enemies, Eliza continued. They're offering us technology, knowledge. At what price? Interrupted the extremist. Your marriage to that creature. Selling yourself. Selling all of us. Nobody is being sold, she said firmly. This is an alliance between equals. The extremist's laugh was bitter. Equals. They're centuries ahead of us, technologically. Once they're embedded in our colony, how long before they're controlling everything? How long before humans become second-class citizens on our own world? As he spoke, Eliza noticed Zarek shifting position subtly, moving closer to the hostages. She needed to keep the extremists focused on her. If you truly care about humanity's independence, she said, then help us build strength through this alliance. Help us learn from them while maintaining our identity. Destruction solves nothing. For a moment, she thought her words might be getting through. Then the extremist raised the detonator higher. No more talking. New terms. The aliens leave, permanently, or we all die here. In that instant, several things happened at once. Zarek moved with startling speed, his body suddenly between the hostages and the extremists. Eliza's security team fired precision stun rounds, and the lead extremist triggered the detonator. Instead of the expected explosion, however, nothing happened. The extremist pressed the button repeatedly, growing panicked. What did you do? It was Zarek who answered, his translator rendering his words calmly. Your explosive devices have been neutralized. Vexari ships routinely scan for such threats and disable them remotely. The fight seemed to go out of the extremists as Eliza's security team moved in to apprehend them. As the hostages were led to safety, she approached Zarek. You knew the explosives were neutralized, she said, yet you still shielded the hostages with your body. Zarek's scales shifted colors slightly. I was reasonably confident in our countermeasures, but I would not gamble with innocent lives. Eliza studied him with new eyes. Thank you. Your negotiation skills are as remarkable as reported, he replied. You maintained calm even when personally attacked. Part of the job, she said, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. As they walked out of the dome together, Eliza realized something had shifted. The political marriage still loomed ahead, but now she'd seen another side of her future husband, one that suggested this partnership might be more than a cold transaction after all. That night, as Haven's twin moons rose over the colony, preparations for the ceremony continued. Though the sabotage attempt had failed, it had revealed the deep tension still present. Yet Eliza found herself less concerned with the ceremony and more curious about the person she would be marrying, the alien who had risked himself to protect her people. Perhaps, she thought as she watched the Vexari ship gleaming in the moonlight, there was more to this arrangement than mere survival. Among strangers, the ceremonial chamber aboard the Vexari flagship pulsed with bioluminescent light, casting rippling patterns across the assembled guests. Eliza stood at the center of it all, fighting to keep her expression neutral despite the strangeness surrounding her. The air itself seemed alive, infused with scents she couldn't identify and subtle vibrations that resonated in her chest. 2 days had passed since the agricultural dome incident. The extremists were in custody, the damage repaired, and the first shipments of Vexari technology were already being implemented across Haven Colony. Progress, bought with her personal future. "It is time," announced the Vexari elder, her scales a shimmering silver that denoted her advanced age and status. Unlike the others who used translators, she spoke in carefully practiced human language. The words strangely accented but understandable. "The binding of worlds begins." Zarek approached from across the chamber, his formal attire unlike anything Eliza had seen before, living material that shifted and flowed with his movements, embedded with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to respond to his emotional state. Currently, they pulsed with a steady blue-green rhythm that human synapsychologists believed indicated calm focus. As he reached her, Zarek extended his four-fingered hand, palm upward in the traditional Vexari gesture of trust, exposing the sensitive scales at the wrist. Eliza placed her hand atop his, as she'd been instructed, feeling the strange texture of his skin, warm and slightly textured like fine leather. "I stand before my people and yours," Zarek spoke, his words translated for the human guests, "to forge a bond beyond self, beyond species. In union, we create possibility where division created only barrenness." The ceremonial words were beautiful, Eliza had to admit. She spoke her own response, carefully memorized in the Vexari language, her human vocal cords struggling with the complex harmonics. "From separate paths we converge, bringing strength through difference, wisdom through exchange." The elder approached, carrying a crystalline vessel containing a luminous fluid. "The essence of binding," she announced, "distilled from the sacred pools of Vexari Prime. It recognizes compatible life and creates connection." This was the part Eliza had been most concerned about. The Vexari binding ritual involved a biochemical component, a substance that supposedly created a mild empathic connection between partners. Human scientists had analyzed it extensively. The elder dipped her long fingers into the vessel and traced symbols on Zarek's forehead, then turned to Eliza. The fluid was cool against her skin, tingling slightly as it absorbed. "From this moment," intoned the elder, "you are recognized as one union across two forms. May your joining bring prosperity to both peoples." A subtle shift rippled through Eliza's awareness, not dramatic, but definite. A new presence at the edge of her consciousness, like knowing someone had entered a room without seeing them. She glanced at Zarek, who was watching her carefully, his eyes reflecting the ambient light. "Can you sense it?" The question formed in her mind, though she hadn't spoken. Zarek's slight nod confirmed what she suspected. The empathic connection was real, if subtle. Not mind-reading, but a sharing of emotional states, perhaps basic intentions. The implications were both fascinating and unsettling. The ceremony concluded with representatives from both species offering blessings and gifts. Commander Jackson, representing the Colony Council, stepped forward with obvious discomfort, but performed his role perfectly, presenting the traditional human wedding gift, a small potted plant from Earth, symbolizing growth and new beginnings. "Captain," he said formally, "the Council extends gratitude for your sacrifice and wishes you fulfillment in this union." Sacrifice. The word hung in the air. Eliza felt a ripple of something through the new empathic connection. Zarek had noticed it too. Hours later, as the reception continued around them, Eliza found a moment to step away, seeking respite on an observation deck that offered a spectacular view of Haven below. The colony looked so fragile from here, a collection of domes and structures clinging to the partially terraformed surface. "It appears more vulnerable from a distance," Zarek said, joining her. Eliza didn't turn. "Does the connection let you read my thoughts now?" "No," he replied. "Just a general sense of your concern. The precise focus I deduced from where you chose to stand." After a pause, he added, "The empathic link unsettles you." "Wouldn't it unsettle you?" she asked, Having someone else's emotions in your head. It's not uncommon among my people, he explained. The ceremonial binding is a formalized version of connections many Vexari naturally develop with those close to them. Eliza finally turned to face him. And what do you sense from me right now? Zarek considered before answering. Determination, concern, curiosity, and his scales shifted slightly. Resentment, though you try to suppress it. Impressive, she admitted. The connection works both ways, he reminded her. What do you sense from me? Eliza closed her eyes, focusing on that new presence in her mind. Duty, pride, and uncertainty. When she opened her eyes, Zarek was watching her with what she was beginning to recognize as the Vexari equivalent of a smile. A subtle relaxation around the eyes, a slight shifting of scale patterns. The uncertainty, he said quietly, is natural. This union is unprecedented. We are, quite literally, navigating uncharted territory. At least we're doing it honestly, she replied. Speaking of which, I never thank you properly for saving those colonists. No thanks are necessary. He stopped suddenly, his attention drawn elsewhere. Eliza felt a spike of alarm through their connection before he controlled it. What is it? She asked. A communication from Vexari Prime, he said, his tone carefully neutral now. The Science Conclave wishes to speak with me urgently. He hesitated. Would you accompany me? As my spouse, you now have clearance for such communications. The gesture wasn't lost on her. He was offering trust, inclusion. Of course. They made their way to a private communication chamber deep within the ship. As the door sealed behind them, a three-dimensional projection materialized, an older Vexari with scales that had faded to a pale lavender. Eliza recognized the distinctive markings of the Science Conclave, the Vexari's most prestigious research body. The elder spoke in the Vexari language, too quickly for Eliza to follow. She sensed growing concern from Zarek as the conversation continued. Finally, he responded with what sounded like assurances before ending the communication. Bad news? Eliza asked. Zarek's scales had darkened, a sign of stress. Potentially. The atmospheric stabilizers we provided to your colony. They're showing unexpected interactions with Haven's native microbial ecosystem. Dangerous interactions. Not immediately life-threatening, he clarified, but concerning enough that the Science Conclave wants me to personally oversee modifications. He hesitated. This will mean remaining on Haven rather than traveling to Vexari Prime as planned. Eliza felt a rush of relief through their connection before she could hide it. The prospect of leaving her colony, her people, to live on an alien world had been weighing on her heavily. You're pleased by this news, Zarek observed. Not by the complication, she corrected, but by the chance to stay with my colony during this transition period. Zarek studied her. Your dedication to your people is admirable. It mirrors the Vexari concept of Tekfari, duty that transcends self-interest. Is that why you agreed to this marriage? She asked. Duty? Partially, he admitted, but also scientific curiosity. The opportunity to work directly with humans, to form a deeper understanding than formal diplomatic exchanges allow. He paused. Does that offend you? No, she said truthfully. It's honest. Better than pretending this is a love match. The concept of romantic love as a prerequisite for pairing is primarily human, he observed. Vexari unions traditionally begin with compatibility and grow toward deeper connection through shared experience. That's not so different from many human cultures throughout history, Eliza pointed out. Their conversation was interrupted by a ship-wide announcement in the Vexari language. Zarek's posture stiffened. What is it? Eliza asked. A general recall of all Vexari personnel currently on Haven's surface, he explained. No reason given. His eyes met hers. This is unusual. Together they hurried to the ship's command center, where a flurry of activity greeted them. The empathic link buzzed with tension that Eliza sensed wasn't just Zarek's. The entire crew was on edge. Report, Zarek demanded from the officer in charge. 3 incidents on the surface, the officer replied through her translator. Vexari technicians implementing the new atmospheric systems were approached by armed humans. No injuries, but definite hostility. The Earth-first movement again, Eliza asked sharply. Unknown, the officer replied. But the High Command has ordered all personnel to return to the ship until the situation clarifies. Eliza felt cold dread settling in her stomach. I need to contact my colony command immediately. Of course, Zarek agreed, leading her to a communication terminal. Commander Jackson's face appeared on the screen, looking grim. Captain Reed, we've got a situation developing. I'm aware of hostility toward Vexari technicians, she said. What's happening, Commander? It's more than that, Jackson said, lowering his voice. There's been a security breach. Someone accessed the communications array and broadcast a message across all colony channels. What message? That the Vexari technology is designed to slowly poison our environment, making Haven uninhabitable for humans while perfect for Vexari colonization. Jackson's expression darkened. They released what they claim is evidence. Technical specifications showing the atmospheric stabilizers gradually altering Haven's atmosphere to match Vexari Prime. Eliza glanced at Zarek, feeling his shock through their connection. That's absurd, she said firmly. The stabilizers were thoroughly vetted by our science team. The specs look convincing, Jackson admitted, and they're stirring up panic. People are demanding answers. I'll return to the surface immediately, Eliza decided. That would be unwise, interjected a new voice. A senior Vexari officer had approached. For your safety, Consort Reed, it would be preferable to remain aboard until this misunderstanding is resolved. The title, Consort, struck Eliza oddly. Not captain anymore, but defined by her relationship to Zarek. She pushed the thought aside. These are my people. They need reassurance from their leader, not absence that will be interpreted as abandonment. Before the officer could object further, Zarek stepped forward. I will accompany her. Prepare a security detail. The journey to Haven's surface was tense. As their shuttle approached the main colony dome, Eliza could see unusual activity. Groups of colonists gathered in public spaces, security personnel deployed in greater numbers than normal. Your people fear us, Zarek observed quietly. Fear comes from uncertainty, she replied. We need to provide answers, transparency. The shuttle docked at the colony's administrative center, where Commander Jackson waited with the security team. His relief at seeing her was evident, though he eyed Zarek and the Vexari guards with obvious suspicion. The council has called an emergency session, Jackson informed her as they walked. Representatives from all sectors are demanding explanations about the Vexari technology. What about our own science team's assessment? Eliza asked. They're reviewing the leaked specifications now, but it's technical material beyond most colonists' understanding. Meanwhile, rumors are spreading faster than facts. The council chamber was packed beyond capacity when they arrived. Conversations died as Eliza entered with Zarek, replaced by a tense silence. She felt waves of emotion through their empathic link. Zarek was detecting the colony's fear and distrust directed at him. Captain Reed, began Council Leader Esposito, a former agricultural engineer who'd helped establish Haven 15 years earlier. Or should we say, consort to the Vexari now. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Eliza kept her expression neutral. I remain Captain Reed, leader of this colony. My marriage changes nothing about my commitment to our people. Yet here you are, returning from their ship instead of being on the ground when this crisis erupted. Esposito countered. I was completing the diplomatic ceremony that secured the technology currently saving our atmosphere, Eliza said firmly. Now let's discuss these allegations directly. Dr. Krishnan, what has our science team concluded about the atmospheric stabilizers? The colony's chief scientist stepped forward, looking uncomfortable. The specifications in the leaked documents do show the stabilizers gradually altering atmospheric composition over time. However, he raised his voice over the resulting outcry. These changes fall within parameters still compatible with human life. The question is one of intent. Intent is clear enough. Call the voice from the crowd. They're terraforming our world for themselves. Zarek stepped forward, his translator activated. If I may address the council. Esposito hesitated before nodding reluctantly. The atmospheric stabilizers provided to Haven are designed to work in stages, Zarek explained. The initial phase corrects your immediate crisis. Subsequent phases gradually optimize the atmosphere for human habitation based on Earth standard parameters. Then explain these specifications, Dr. Krishnan challenged, displaying the leaked documents on the chamber's main screen. Zarek studied them briefly. These are not the specifications of the technology we provided. They have been altered. The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Eliza raised her hand for silence. That's a serious allegation, Zarek. Are you suggesting deliberate sabotage? I am, he replied steadily. Compare these documents to the original specifications my team provided to your science division 3 months ago. You will find significant discrepancies. Dr. Krishnan looked confused. We never received any preliminary specifications. The first technical data arrived with the actual equipment 5 days ago. Now it was Zarek's turn to look surprised. Eliza felt his genuine shock through their connection. That's impossible. I personally authorized the transmission of complete specifications well in advance of implementation. Someone is lying, Esposito said bluntly. And given the circumstances, why should we trust the alien over our own people? Before Eliza could respond, her personal communicator chimed with an emergency alert. She checked it, then looked up grimly. The atmospheric processing center has been breached. Armed colonists have taken control and are threatening to destroy the Vexuri equipment. I didn't authorize that, Esposito said quickly. Of course not, Eliza replied. This is exactly what someone wants. Chaos. Breakdown of trust. She turned to Zarek. We need to get to the processing center immediately. As they hurried toward the emergency vehicles, Zarek spoke quietly. You believe me. I sense your honesty through our connection, she replied simply. But more importantly, this fits a pattern. First, the agricultural dome attack, now this. Someone is systematically trying to sabotage our alliance. But who benefits from Haven's destruction? Zarek asked. That's what we need to find out. The atmospheric processing center was Haven's largest structure, a massive complex of interconnected domes housing the technology that made the planet's harsh atmosphere breathable for humans. Now it had become a flashpoint of the growing crisis. As their vehicle approached, they could see a standoff developing. Colony security forces had established a perimeter around the facility, while inside, armed colonists were visible through the transparent sections of the main dome. At the center of the complex stood the newly installed Vexuri atmospheric stabilizers, elegant spires of technology that pulsed with subtle energy as they worked to heal Haven's deteriorating atmosphere. How many hostiles? Eliza asked the security chief who met them at the perimeter. Approximately 20, Captain, he reported. They've sealed the internal doors and threatened to destroy the stabilizers if we attempt entry. They're demanding all Vexuri leave the planet immediately and the alliance be dissolved. Have they identified themselves? They're calling themselves Haven's true defenders, mostly miners and maintenance workers, according to their spokesman. Eliza frowned. These weren't the same extremists from the agricultural dome incident. This was spreading beyond a small radical group. Let me speak to them, she decided. Captain, Jackson protested. Protocol in a hostage situation. There are no hostages, just equipment, she pointed out, and I'm still in command here. The security chief established a communication link to the facility's internal systems. A tense face appeared on the portable screen. A man Eliza recognized as Marcus Chen, a senior maintenance technician who had helped build Haven from its earliest days. Marcus, she began calmly, This isn't the way to address concerns. Captain Reed, he replied, his voice hard with accusation. Or should I call you something else now? You've made your choice clear. My choice has always been Haven's survival, she said firmly. Nothing has changed that. Everything has changed. Marcus shouted. These aliens aren't saving us. They're transforming our home for themselves. We've seen the proof. Those documents were falsified, Eliza explained. Give us time to verify the original specifications. Marcus laughed bitterly. Time for them to complete whatever they're doing to our heir. Look at yourself, married to one of them now, defending them against your own people. How do we know you haven't been compromised? The accusation stung, but Eliza maintained her composure. Marcus, you've known me for 7 years. Have I ever acted against this colony's interests? A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face before hardening again. People change, especially when aliens start messing with their heads. His eyes flicked to Zarek, standing silently beside her. We saw the ceremonial binding. Who knows what they did to you? Zarek stepped forward. The binding creates a limited empathic connection, nothing more. Your captain's mind remains entirely her own. That's exactly what you'd say if you were controlling her, Marcus retorted. This is getting us nowhere, Eliza interrupted. Marcus, the stabilizers are currently the only thing preventing our atmosphere from degrading beyond sustainable levels. Destroying them endangers everyone. Better a quick death than becoming their puppets, Marcus replied, though with less conviction than before. Through their connection, Eliza felt Zarek's growing concern, not for himself, but for the colonists. He genuinely feared for their safety if the stabilizers were damaged. The depth of his concern surprised her. Give me 6 hours, she proposed. 6 hours to bring you evidence that the technology is exactly what we agreed to, atmospheric stabilization for human habitation. If I can't prove it by then, you can make your decision. Marcus conferred with others off-screen before responding. 4 hours. And you deliver the proof personally, not some digital transmission that could be faked. Agreed, Eliza said. No one approaches the facility until then. When the communication ended, Jackson looked at her incredulously. 4 hours to disprove accusations we just learned about. How exactly do you plan to do that? By finding the truth, she replied. Someone manipulated those specifications and intercepted the original data sent months ago. We find who, we find why. And where do we start? Jackson asked skeptically. It was Zarek who answered. With the transmission logs, both from our vessel and your colony's communication array. Back at the colony's administrative center, Eliza assembled a small team. Dr. Krishnan, Jackson, and 2 of her most trusted communication specialists. Zarek had returned to the Vexari ship to retrieve their transmission records. Here's what we know, she told the team. 3 months ago, Zarek sent detailed specifications of the atmospheric stabilizers to Haven. We never received them. Instead, someone waited until the actual equipment arrived, then released altered specs designed to incite fear and resistance. But who could intercept secure transmissions and possess the technical expertise to create convincing forgeries? Dr. Krishnan wondered. That's what we need to find out. Eliza replied. Check every communication with the Vexari over the past 6 months. Look for anomalies, unauthorized access, anything unusual. As the team worked, Eliza couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. This went beyond simple xenophobia. The sabotage was too coordinated, too technically sophisticated. Zarek returned an hour later, carrying what looked like a crystalline data storage device. Our complete transmission logs, he explained, including confirmation codes that your systems should have sent when receiving our specifications. Dr. Krishnan connected the Vexari device to their systems, technology they'd developed specifically for data exchange between the different computing architectures. This will take some time to process, he warned. While they waited, Eliza pulled Zarek aside. This doesn't make sense. Even if someone wanted to sabotage our alliance, Why tamper with the specifications rather than the actual technology? Perhaps they couldn't access the technology itself, Zarek suggested. Our equipment has multiple safeguards against tampering. Or maybe they wanted to create fear rather than actual damage, Eliza mused. Turn public opinion against the Vexari. Force us to reject your help even though we need it. But again, who benefits from Haven's failure? Before she could respond, one of the communication specialists called out, "Captain, I found something. 3 months ago, exactly when the specifications should have arrived, there was an unusual power fluctuation in the communication array. The logs show a complete system reset afterward. Could it have been a natural occurrence? Solar flare activity?" Eliza asked. "No recorded solar activity that day," the specialist replied. "And here's the interesting part. The system reset was initiated using administrator credentials." "Whose credentials?" Jackson demanded. The specialist looked uncomfortable. "Yours, Commander." All eyes turned to Jackson, who looked genuinely shocked. "That's impossible. I never authorized a system reset." "Maybe not consciously," said a new voice from the doorway. Eliza turned to see Council Leader Esposito entering, accompanied by colony security officers. "But you did it all the same." "What are you talking about?" Jackson demanded. "We've just completed a security sweep of all senior staff quarters," Esposito explained grimly. "Found this in your private terminal, Commander." He held up a small device, no larger than a fingernail. "It's a neurological interface, Vexari technology. Let someone else control your actions remotely without your knowledge." Eliza felt Zarek's shock through their connection, genuine surprise and alarm. "That's impossible," he said. "Such technology would violate every ethical principle of my people." "Would it?" Esposito challenged. "Or is it exactly how an advanced species might infiltrate and subvert a human colony?" He turned to the security officers. "Take Commander Jackson into custody, and the Vexari as well." "Wait," Eliza interceded, stepping between the officers and Zarek. "This doesn't add up. If the Vexari wanted to sabotage Haven, why offer life-saving technology in the first place? Why form an alliance at all?" "To gain our trust," Esposito replied. "Make us dependent on their technology, then gradually transform our world to suit themselves." "If that were true," Eliza argued, "why would someone need to falsify the specifications to turn us against them? The real specifications would have revealed their plan." This gave Esposito pause, but only briefly. Perhaps there are factions among the Vexari themselves, some who want peaceful cooperation, others with conquest in mind. Through their connection, Eliza could feel Zarek's growing agitation. Not guilt, but urgent realization. He caught her eye and sent a deliberate thought. "The device is not Vexari. Look closer." "Let me see that interface," Eliza demanded, holding out her hand to Esposito. He hesitated before handing it over. Eliza examined it carefully, then passed it to Zarek. "Is this your technology?" Zarek studied it, then shook his head. "No. The design mimics our aesthetic, but the components are not Vexari. This is a human-made device designed to appear Vexari." "Convenient claim," Esposito scoffed. Dr. Krishnan had moved closer to examine the device. "He's right," the scientist said after a moment. "I've been studying Vexari technology since they first contacted us. This uses silicon-based circuitry. Vexari tech is based on crystalline organic compounds." "A clever fake," Eliza concluded, "just like the doctored specifications." She turned to Esposito. "Who found this device, exactly?" "Security Chief Mercer," Esposito replied. "He led the sweep personally." The pieces suddenly clicked into place for Eliza. "Where is Mercer now?" "Coordinating security at the processing center," Esposito said, confusion crossing his face. "Why?" "Because he's the only person with access to both commander-level communication systems and security sweeps of private quarters," Eliza explained, her mind racing. "He could have used Jackson's credentials, planted this device, and ensured he'd be the one to discover it. That's a serious accusation, Captain, Esposito warned. Check his background, Eliza insisted, unwilling to bet he has connections we've missed. While Esposito looked skeptical, he instructed one of the security officers to pull up Mercer's file. The officer worked at a terminal for several minutes before looking up with surprise. Captain, there's something odd here. Chief Mercer transferred to Haven just 8 months ago from the Proxima colonies. But when I cross-reference with Proxima's personnel database, there's no record of him serving there. A fabricated background, Eliza said grimly. He infiltrated our colony with a specific purpose. But who is he working for? Jackson demanded, still reeling from the revelation that he'd been manipulated. Dr. Krishnan, who had been quietly working at a terminal, suddenly called out, Captain, the Vexari transmission logs confirm it. The specifications were sent and received by our systems, but there's something else. I've identified the source of the falsified specs that were distributed colony-wide. Let me guess, Eliza said. Mercer's terminal. Yes, but there's more, Krishnan continued. The falsification wasn't just to create fear of the Vexari. It was to hide the fact that someone has been subtly sabotaging our atmosphere processors for months, long before the Vexari arrived to help. The implications hit Eliza like a physical blow. Someone wanted Haven to fail. They've been ensuring our atmosphere degraded faster than it should naturally. But why? Esposito asked, finally beginning to accept the evidence before him. Zarek's eyes met Eliza's. There's only one logical conclusion. Someone wants this world, but doesn't want humans on it. And they're willing to frame my people for the extinction of your colony to get it. We need to get to the processing center, Eliza decided. Now, before Mercer realizes we've figured it out. As they raced toward the processing center, Eliza's mind whirled with implications. Haven wasn't failing naturally. It was being systematically sabotaged. The Vexari Alliance hadn't been the target. It had been an unexpected complication for whoever was really behind this. And now, with armed colonists threatening to destroy the only technology keeping them alive, the true saboteur was positioned to complete his mission while escaping blame. Betrayal and truth. Eliza's security vehicle screamed toward the atmospheric processing center, pushing its engines beyond safety parameters. Beside her, Zarek maintained a composed demeanor, but through their connection, she sensed his growing alarm. In the back seat, Commander Jackson and Dr. Krishnan worked feverishly on portable terminals, attempting to establish exactly how deep the sabotage went. I've got Mercer's location, Jackson announced. He's inside the processing center with the protesters. Perfect position to ensure the stabilizers get destroyed. Eliza said grimly, Can you raise Marcus Chen on a secure channel? Trying, Jackson replied. But Mercer will be monitoring communications. We need to warn them without alerting Mercer, Dr. Krishnan pointed out. Zarek suddenly leaned forward. Could we use the empathic link? The binding ceremony created a connection between Eliza and myself, but the technology itself can be expanded. What do you mean? Eliza asked. The ceremonial binding uses biochemical markers that enhance natural telepathic abilities present in Vexari physiology, Zarek explained. With the right equipment, I could potentially establish a temporary connection with someone else, just enough to communicate basic concepts or warnings. You never mentioned Vexari were telepathic, Jackson said suspiciously. Not telepathic in the way humans conceptualize it, Zarek clarified. We can sense emotional states and, with physical contact and concentration, share basic impressions. The binding ceremony enhances this natural ability between partners. Would this work with a human who hasn't undergone the binding ceremony? Dr. Krishnan asked. Theoretically, Zarek said, but I would need specialized equipment from our ship. Eliza made a quick decision. Jackson, contact the Vexari ship. Have them prepare whatever Zarek needs and meet us at the processing center perimeter. She turned to Zarek. How close would you need to be to Marcus Chen? Within visual range, ideally, he replied. And he would need to be receptive, not actively hostile to the connection. "That's going to be a challenge," Jackson muttered. "We need to try," Eliza insisted. "Meanwhile, Dr. Krishnan, what have you learned about the atmospheric sabotage?" The scientist's expression was grim. "Someone has been introducing trace compounds into the atmosphere processors for months, elements that accelerate the breakdown of our terraforming efforts. Subtle enough that our routine monitoring didn't catch it, but devastating in cumulative effect. And Mercer had access to the maintenance systems," Jackson realized. "Not just access," Dr. Krishnan added. "According to the logs, he personally conducted 3 emergency maintenance procedures on the primary atmospheric filters in the past 6 months. So the entire crisis that brought the Vexeri here in the first place," Eliza began, "was manufactured," Dr. Krishnan confirmed. "Haven's atmosphere was stabilizing normally until these interventions began." The implication struck Eliza like a physical blow. Someone had deliberately endangered 20,000 colonists, and now that same someone was positioned to ensure the only solution would be destroyed, dooming them all. But why? Jackson asked the question they were all thinking. What does Mercer or whoever he works for gain from Haven's destruction? Perhaps not destruction, Zarek suggested quietly, but evacuation. The pieces clicked into place in Eliza's mind. An uninhabited world, already partially terraformed, with established infrastructure, valuable mining resources on the moon. A prize worth having, Zarek agreed. And if humans abandoned it believing the planet was naturally failing, it would be open for claim by whoever arrived next. Eliza finished the thought. As they approached the processing center, Eliza could see the situation had deteriorated. More colonists had gathered outside the perimeter, some supporting the protesters inside, others demanding action to protect the vital facility. Colony security struggled to maintain order while negotiating with those inside. A sleek Vexeri shuttle was already waiting at the designated landing area. 2 Vexeri scientists emerged, carrying a container that they quickly brought to Zarek. "The telepathic amplifier," one explained, opening the case to reveal what looked like a circlet of crystalline material. "It will enhance your natural abilities enough to potentially reach an untrained human mind." "There's something else you should know," the other scientist added, her scales shifting to a troubled pattern. "We've detected unusual energy signatures orbiting Haven's second moon, consistent with cloaked vessels. Someone's waiting in the wings," Jackson realized. "How many vessels?" Eliza demanded. "At least 3, the scientist replied. "Size and configuration unknown due to the cloaking technology." Eliza's mind raced. "They're waiting for chaos, for us to destroy our own salvation. Then they swoop in as rescuers, or simply wait until we're forced to evacuate." "We're running out of time," Jackson warned, pointing to his terminal. Energy readings from inside the processing center suggest they're preparing to disable the stabilizers. Eliza made a quick decision. "Zarek, are you certain you can do this? Reach Marcus Chen somehow?" "Not certain," he admitted, "but I believe it's possible." "Then we try." She turned to Jackson. "Create a distraction at the main entrance, something to draw Mercer's attention. Dr. Krishnan, prepare a complete data package of everything we discovered. If this doesn't work, we broadcast it to every terminal in the colony." The crystalline circlet looked delicate, almost fragile as Zarek placed it on his head. His scales rippled with subtle colors as he activated the device. "I need to see him," Zarek said, his voice taking on an unusual harmonic quality. Eliza led him to a position with a clear view into the main processing chamber. Through the transparent sections of the dome, they could see the protesters gathered around the central stabilizer array. Marcus Chen stood at a control terminal, while Mercer paced nearby, projecting the appearance of a concerned security officer while subtly encouraging the protesters. "There," Eliza pointed. "Marcus is at the main console wearing the red maintenance uniform." Zarek focused, his eyes taking on a luminous quality as the amplifier activated fully. His breathing slowed, and Elisa felt the strange sensation of their empathic connection expanding, reaching outward. She sensed his concentration, the strain of extending his consciousness towards someone untrained, unwilling. Inside the facility, Marcus Chen suddenly stiffened, his hand pausing over the terminal. He looked up, confused, scanning the room as if hearing something just at the edge of perception. "Is it working?" Elisa whispered. "I'm trying to convey simple concepts," Zarek replied, his voice strained. "Danger, deception, Mercer." But his mind is resistant, afraid. Through their connection, Elisa sensed Zarek's struggle, like trying to be heard through a storm. An idea struck her. "Let me help. Our connection might strengthen the signal." She placed her hand on Zarek's arm, focusing on their empathic link. Immediately, she felt herself drawn into the strange mental landscape he had created, sensing Marcus Chen's confusion and fear as an almost tangible thing. "Marcus," she projected with all her concentration. "Mercer is the saboteur. Check his terminal access records. The Vexari are not the enemy." Inside the facility, Marcus Chen staggered slightly, drawing concerned looks from those around him. He shook his head as if clearing it, then abruptly moved to the nearest terminal, fingers flying across the interface. "What's he doing?" Mercer's voice carried faintly through the domed structure, sharp with sudden concern. "Checking something," Marcus replied, not looking up from the screen. "Security access logs." Mercer's posture changed instantly, the concerned officer vanishing, replaced by something predatory and calculating. He moved toward Marcus, one hand slipping inside his jacket. "He's going to kill him," Eliza realized with horror. Without thinking, she activated her emergency override code on her communicator. Throughout the facility, alarm klaxons suddenly blared, the colony-wide emergency alert system triggering lockdown protocols. The distraction worked. Mercer hesitated, startled by the alarms, while Marcus Chen backed.